The iron chains burned against Stephanie's wrists as the court sentinel dragged her into the center of the Emberdawn Court's throne room. Every high fae noble in attendance turned to watch, their immortal faces painted with curiosity and contempt. She kept her eyes lowered, her glamour wrapped tight around her true form, praying to the Ancient Ones that it would hold just a little longer. "Kneel before the High Lord," the sentinel commanded, shoving her down onto the polished crystal floor. She knelt, feeling the weight of 100 stairs pressing down on her shoulders. The throne room blazed with amber light, the eternal dawn that gave the Emberdawn Court its name streaming through the vaulted windows. Harrison Ashford, High Lord of the Emberdawn Court, sat upon his throne of twisted dawn wood and gold, his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her glamour flicker dangerously. Lady Seraphine stepped forward from the crowd of nobles, her crimson gown sweeping across the floor like spilled blood. "My lord, I present proof that this creature has deceived our court for 3 years. She claims to be lesser fae, fit only for servitude, but I have reason to believe she is fully mortal, a human who has somehow breached our realm's borders." Gasps rippled through the assembled court. Stephanie's heart hammered against her ribs. Being discovered as mortal would mean immediate exile to the human realm, where she would age and die within decades. But the truth would be so much worse. "What evidence do you bring before this court?" Harrison's voice was deep and commanding, resonating with the power of centuries. "I have consulted with the court's ancient records, my lord. No lesser fae matching her description has ever been documented in our bloodlines. Her magical signature is peculiar, weak, almost non-existent, and yet she bears no mark of mortality." Lady Seraphine gestured to Stephanie with a jeweled hand. "I believe she uses a glamour to hide her mortal form. I demand the court invoke the Rite of True Revealing." Stephanie's blood turned to ice. The Rite of True Revealing would strip away every glamour, every shield, every carefully constructed illusion she had spent 3 years maintaining. It would expose not her mortality, but something far more dangerous: the celestial bloodline she had been running from since the day she watched her mother burn for possessing it. "The request is within your rights as a noble of this court," Harrison said, his gaze never leaving Stephanie. There was something in his eyes, something that made her think he could already sense what lay beneath her carefully crafted disguise. "Stand, girl. State your name for the record." She rose on shaking legs, her chains clinking. "Stephanie, my lord. I serve in the kitchens of the palace." "Stephanie. No house name, no bloodline. Claim. How convenient." Lady Seraphine circled her like a predator. "Tell me, kitchen girl, have you ever witnessed a rite of true revealing?" "No, my lady." "Then allow me to explain. The High Lord will command you to drop your glamour. If you refuse, the court's magic itself will tear it from you, and the pain will be exquisite. If you submit willingly, it will merely feel like your skin is being flayed from your bones." She smiled. "Either way, we will see your true form." Harrison stood from his throne, descending the 7 steps to the main floor with fluid grace. He moved like liquid shadow, like dawn itself given form. Power radiated from him in waves that made the air shimmer. When he stopped before Stephanie, she could smell cedarwood and morning frost and something indefinably ancient. "Look at me," he commanded. She raised her eyes to meet his, and the world seemed to still. His eyes were the color of amber shot through with gold, and in their depths she saw centuries of life, of battles, of losses and victories beyond mortal comprehension. But more than that, she saw recognition, as if he knew exactly what she was hiding and had been waiting for this moment. "I can feel your magic, even through your glamour," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "What are you so afraid of, Stephanie?" "Everything, my lord." Something flickered across his face. Understanding, perhaps, or compassion. But duty bound him as much as fear bound her. He stepped back and raised his hand, ancient words of power forming on his lips. "By the authority vested in me as High Lord of the Emberdawn Court, I invoke the Rite of True Revealing. Let all glamours fall. Let all illusions shatter. Let what is hidden be seen." The magic slammed into her like a physical blow. Her glamour fought back, the protective shield she had woven from stolen moonlight and desperate prayers, straining against the crushing weight of the High Lord's command. Pain lanced through every nerve in her body. She heard herself cry out, fell to her knees, felt the chains binding her wrists begin to crack as something inside her responded to the forced revelation. "Please," she gasped, though she didn't know if she was begging him to stop or begging her own power to remain hidden. "Please, I can't." But the right was absolute. Her glamour shattered like glass, and the power she had suppressed for 3 years exploded outward in a blast of pure celestial light. The throne room erupted into chaos. Nobles screamed and shielded their eyes as blinding light poured from Stephanie's body, banishing every shadow in the vast hall. The iron chains around her wrists melted away, unable to withstand the heat of her unveiled magic. She felt her form shifting, her true nature finally free after years of suppression. Wings unfurled from her back, not the leathery wings of lesser fae, but wings of pure starlight and dawn fire, translucent and shimmering with every color of sunrise. Her hair, which she had glamoured to dull brown, now cascaded down her back in waves of silver and gold. Her skin glowed with an inner radiance, as if she had swallowed the sun itself. And across her shoulders and arms, ancient markings appeared, celestial runes that had not been seen in the Emberdawn Court for over 1,000 years. When the light finally dimmed enough for the assembled court to look upon her, the silence was deafening. "Impossible," Lady Seraphine breathed, stumbling backward. "She's not mortal. She's celestial born," Harrison finished, his voice carrying through the throne room with absolute authority. He stared at Stephanie with an expression she couldn't decipher: wonder, hunger, recognition, and something that looked almost like relief. "Everyone on your knees, now!" The court obeyed instantly, including Lady Seraphine, who looked as though she might be sick. Only Harrison remained standing, his eyes locked on Stephanie as she struggled to control the power pouring from her in waves. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, her voice no longer the meek whisper of a servant, but resonant with harmonics that made the crystal walls sing. "I was trying to hide it. I've always tried to hide it." "Why?" Harrison moved closer, seemingly unafraid of the raw magic crackling around her. "Do you even know what you are?" "A danger. A target. An abomination." She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to pull the power back in, but it was like trying to put sunrise back into darkness. "My mother was celestial born. They burned her for it when I was 7. Said she was too dangerous to live, that our bloodline was a threat to the natural order. Understanding dawned in Harrison's eyes, followed by something fierce and protective. Who ordered her death? The High Lord of the Twilight Court. He claimed the ancient treaty between our kind and the courts had been broken the moment she manifested her full power. Stephanie's voice cracked. He said celestial-born were never meant to walk among the Fae, that we belonged to an older age before the courts were formed, and our existence threatened the balance. He was wrong. Harrison reached out, and before she could pull away, he took her glowing hand in his. The moment their skin touched, something profound happened. His amber eyes flared with golden light, and she felt his magic, ancient, powerful, eternal, reach out and twine with hers like two rivers merging into one. The bond snapped into place with such force that they both gasped. Stephanie felt everything, his shock, his longing, his absolute certainty that he had been waiting centuries for this moment. Through the bond, she could sense his memories flickering past. Endless. Years of ruling alone, of declining marriage after marriage, of searching for something he couldn't name. And underneath it all, a prophecy he had heard whispered by the seers when he first took his throne 200 years ago. The dawn will break in celestial fire, and the lost bloodline will return, Harrison murmured, staring at their joined hands where gold and silver light spiraled together. And the High Lord who claims her will rule an age of unmatched power. I am not a prize to be claimed, Stephanie said, trying to pull away, but he held fast. No, you are my mate. The word resonated through the throne room, through the bond between them, through every fiber of her being. I have waited 2 centuries for you, though I did not know your face or your name. My magic has always known. It's been restless, searching, calling out for yours. She wanted to deny it, wanted to run as she had been running since her mother's death. But the bond between them pulsed with truth. She could feel it in her soul. This was why she had been drawn to the Emberdawn Court when she could have hidden in any realm. This was why, despite every attempt to remain invisible, she had caught his attention from the moment she set foot in his palace. Your court will never accept me. Lady Seraphine was right. I have no house, no bloodline claim, no— You have mine. Harrison pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her face. You bear my mark now, whether you realize it or not. The moment our magic bonded, every fae in this realm felt it. You are mine, Stephanie, and I am yours. No one will touch you. No one will harm you. I will burn entire courts to ash before I let anyone take you from me. Lady Seraphine made a sound of protest from where she still knelt, and Harrison's head snapped toward her with predatory speed. Did you have something to say, Seraphine? His voice dropped to a lethal purr. Perhaps you wish to challenge the mate bond that is just formed between your High Lord and the Celestial-born? Please, speak freely. I'm curious to hear what punishment such an offense merits. No, my lord, I meant no disrespect. I only sought to protect the court from deception. You sought to humiliate a woman you thought powerless, to expose what you believed was a mortal girl to the cruelty of this court's judgment. Harrison's magic darkened the room, dawnlight shifting toward the deep amber of sunset. Your actions have consequences, Seraphine. You are stripped of your title and lands. You will serve in the kitchens where Stephanie once worked. And you will remember every day what it means to be powerless among those who consider themselves superior. Gasps rang through the court, but no one dared protest. Harrison's word was law, and they had all witnessed the mate bond form, a sacred connection that occurred perhaps once in a millennium, binding two fae together at the soul level. To challenge it would be to challenge the will of magic itself. "As you command, my lord," Lady Seraphine whispered, her face pale with shock and humiliation. Harrison dismissed her with a wave of his hand and returned his attention to Stephanie, whose celestial light had finally begun to settle into a soft, steady glow around her skin. "Can you retract your wings? The transformation takes practice if you've been suppressing it for years." She focused inward, and slowly, the wings of dawn fire folded back into her body. The celestial markings on her skin dimmed but didn't disappear. They would be visible now, always, a testament to what she truly was. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and yet, through the bond, Harrison's emotions washed over her. Fierce pride, protective rage at what she had endured, and an overwhelming desire to keep her safe, to claim her so thoroughly that no one would ever question her place at his side. "I'm still afraid," she admitted, her servant's instincts warring with the power thrumming through her veins. "I don't know how to be this. How to be celestial born in a world of fae politics and ancient grudges." "Then I will teach you." He drew her closer still, until they stood chest to chest, his warmth bleeding into her despite the magic that made her skin glow. "But first, we must address the prophecy. The seers spoke of more than just your return. They spoke of a trial, a threat from the ancient dark that only the union of High Lord and Celestial Born could withstand." A chill ran down Stephanie's spine. What kind of threat? Before Harrison could answer, the great doors of the throne room burst open with a crack like thunder. A figure strode in, wrapped in shadows so thick that no feature could be discerned except for eyes that burned like violet fire. The temperature plummeted. Frost formed on the crystal walls. Every fae in the room scrambled away from the newcomer, terror plain on their immortal faces. "So the prophecy begins to unfold," the figure said, voice like grinding stone and winter winds. "How delightful. I had hoped the celestial bloodline was truly extinct. But it seems the Emberdawn Court has been harboring a very precious secret." Harrison moved immediately, placing himself between Stephanie and the intruder, power gathering around him in visible waves. "Malachi, you were banished from all courts 3 centuries ago. Your presence here is an act of war." "War? No, Harrison. This is something far more personal." The shadows around Malachi peeled back slightly, revealing a face of terrible beauty. Sharp cheekbones, colorless skin, and those burning violet eyes that seemed to see through flesh and bone to the soul beneath. "The Celestial Born carries magic that predates your precious courts. Magic that could reshape the very fabric of our realm. And I intend to claim it for myself." Stephanie's celestial light flared instinctively, reacting to the darkness pressing in from all sides. She felt her power rising again, but this time it wasn't fear that drove it. It was the bond. Harrison's protective fury feeding into her own awakening strength. "You'll claim nothing," she said, stepping up beside Harrison despite his attempt to shield her. "I am not a thing to be taken or used. Not anymore." Malachi laughed, the sound echoing through the throne room like shattering ice. "Spirit, how refreshing. But you don't understand what you are, little Dawnwalker. Your power is vast, yes, but untrained, wild, dangerous to yourself as much as anyone else. His violet gaze slid to Harrison. Tell her, High Lord. Tell her what happens when Celestial-born lose control of their magic. Tell her about the last one, the one who incinerated an entire court trying to save her mortal lover. Harrison's jaw clenched, and through the bond, Stephanie felt his conflict. It's true, he admitted quietly. But that was 500 years ago, and she had no training, no anchor. You have me. An anchor. How romantic. Malachi's shadows expanded, filling the throne room with darkness so complete that even the eternal dawnlight couldn't pierce it. I offer you a choice, Dawnwalker. Come with me willingly, and I will teach you to control your power. Refuse, and I will take you by force. And everyone in this court will burn in celestial fire as you struggle against me. The threat hung in the air like a blade. Stephanie could feel her power responding to her panic, building toward critical mass. He was right. She had no control, no training. What if she lost grip on her magic here in a room full of fae? What if she became the monster she had always feared? Harrison? His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining, and the bond between them blazed bright. Trust me, he said, his amber eyes locking with hers. Open yourself to the bond. Let my magic guide yours. We are mated, Stephanie. Our power is meant to flow together. She didn't understand, but she had no choice except to trust. She lowered the walls she had kept around her magic her entire life and let Harrison in completely. The effect was instantaneous. His ancient, controlled power wrapped around her wild, celestial light like a steady hand guiding a flame. She felt herself settle, felt the dangerous surge of magic calm and shape itself into something directed and purposeful. Together, as one, they turned to face Malachi. You wanted to see celestial fire, old shadow? Harrison said, his voice resonating with two-toned harmonics as his magic synchronized with Stephanie's. Let me show you what it looks like when wielded with purpose. They raised their joined hands, and light erupted from their palms. Not the blinding explosion from before, but a focused lance of dawn and starlight that burned through Malachi's shadows like they were nothing more than morning mist. The shadow face screamed, a sound of rage and pain, as the celestial light seared into him. This isn't over! His form began to dissolve, retreating toward the shattered doors. The prophecy speaks of 3 trials, Dawnwalker. This was merely the first. I will return, and next time, your mate bond will not be enough to save you. Then he was gone, leaving only scorched crystal and the lingering smell of burned darkness behind. The throne room remained silent for a long moment before erupting into chaos. Nobles rushed toward Harrison and Stephanie, some with congratulations, others with barely concealed fear. All of them trying to process what they had just witnessed. But Stephanie heard none of it. She swayed, exhausted from the forced transformation, the mate bond formation, and the battle with Malachi all happening within the span of an hour. Harrison caught her immediately, lifting her into his arms with ease. The court is dismissed, he announced, his voice brooking no argument. My mate requires rest, and I will not have her subjected to your curiosity like some spectacle. We will address all questions and concerns tomorrow at dawn. He carried her from the throne room through a private entrance, away from the staring eyes and whispered speculation. Stephanie rested her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her ear, feeling the bond between them pulse with warmth and safety. 3 trials, she murmured, remembering Malachai's words. What did he mean? The prophecy the seers told me was incomplete. They said a celestial born would return, and that claiming her would bring either great power or great destruction. There were trials mentioned, tests to prove the bond was true and strong enough to withstand what was coming. He pushed open the door to his private chambers, a vast room filled with warm light and comfortable furniture that looked nothing like a tyrant's lair. But we will face them together. I meant what I said, Stephanie. You are mine now, and I protect what is mine. He set her down gently on the massive bed, its covers embroidered with gold and amber thread. She should have been terrified, trapped alone with the most powerful fae in the Emberdawn Court, but through the bond she could feel only his concern for her well-being, his anger at those who had hurt her, and a deep, abiding devotion that took her breath away. "Why me?" she asked. "You could have had any fae noble in all the courts. Why would fate bind you to someone who lived as a servant, who has been running and hiding her whole life?" Harrison sat beside her on the bed, his hand coming up to cup her cheek with infinite gentleness. "Because you are stronger than any noble who has grown soft in their privilege. Because you survived when others would have given up. Because your magic calls to mine like dawn calls to the sun." He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. "And because from the moment I first saw you in my palace kitchens, pretending to be something small and forgettable, my soul recognized yours. I just didn't understand what it meant until today." "I saw you that day. You came to inspect the kitchens after the harvest festival." The memory surfaced crystal clear. "You stopped and asked my name. I was so afraid you would see through my glamour that I could barely speak." "I remember. You told me your name was Stephanie, and that you were honored to serve the Emberdawn Court." His thumb traced her cheekbone, sending shivers down her spine. "What you don't know is that I went back to the kitchen 7 times after that, inventing reasons to inspect or oversee, just hoping to catch another glimpse of you. My advisors thought I had lost my mind." Despite everything, she found herself smiling. The great High Lord, sneaking into his own kitchens like a lovesick fool? Completely lovesick, utterly besotted. I tried to fight it, told myself I was being ridiculous. He brushed a strand of silver gold hair behind her ear. But my magic knew better. It was drawn to you like metal to a lodestone. And now I understand why. The bond between them hummed with contentment, with rightness. But there were still so many questions, so many dangers ahead. What happens now? Malachi said there would be 3 trials. Lady Seraphine may have been punished. But there will be others who resent me, who see me as an outsider who doesn't belong. Then they will learn to see you as their High Lady." Harrison took both her hands in his expression deadly serious. "Tomorrow, we will hold a formal bonding ceremony before the entire court. I will claim you publicly, bind us together with the ancient oaths so that no one can question your place at my side. You will wear my crown and sit upon my throne, and anyone who challenges you will answer to me." The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "I don't know how to be a High Lady. I don't know court politics or ancient protocols or—" "You will learn. And until you do, I will be beside you every step of the way." He pressed his forehead to hers, their shared magic creating a soft glow around them. "You have been alone for so long, Stephanie. Let me stand with you now. Let me give you the protection and power you should have always had." Tears pricked her eyes, and she realized she was crying, not from fear or pain, but from relief. For the first time since her mother's death, she wasn't alone. She had someone who knew what she was and wanted her anyway. Someone whose magic sang in harmony with hers, whose soul was bound to hers by forces older than the courts themselves. "I'm afraid I'll disappoint you, that I'll lose control and hurt people, just like Malachi said." "You won't. Not with me as your anchor." He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. "Sleep now. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but tonight, you are safe. I will guard you while you rest." She wanted to argue, wanted to stay awake and talk through everything that had happened, but exhaustion pulled at her like a tide. The transformation had drained her completely, and the bond, though it felt natural now, had taken enormous energy to form. Her eyes drifted closed, and she felt Harrison shift, pulling a blanket over her and settling beside her on the bed, close enough to provide comfort, but respectful of the boundaries she might still need. Through the bond, she felt him keeping watch, his magic spread throughout the palace like a protective net. She felt safe in a way she hadn't since childhood, and with that feeling came the first truly peaceful sleep she'd had in years. She dreamed of dawn breaking over an endless ocean, of celestial light painting the sky in impossible colors, of a future where she stood beside Harrison not as a servant or even as a victim, but as an equal, a partner, a high lady who had claimed her own power instead of running from it. When Stephanie woke, sunlight, the real sun, not the eternal dawn of the Emberdawn Court, was streaming through the tall windows. She found herself alone in the vast bed, but she could feel Harrison through the bond, his presence somewhere else in the palace, steady and reassuring. On the pillow beside her lay a note written in elegant script. "The ceremony begins at dusk. Your ladies in waiting will help you prepare. Trust them. Trust yourself. I will be waiting. H." Ladies in waiting. The word seemed absurd applied to her, but when she sat up, she found 3 female fae standing respectfully at the edge of the room, their expressions kind rather than contemptuous. "Good morning, my lady," the eldest said, a silver-haired fae with gentle eyes. "I am Isadora, formerly lady-in-waiting to the late High Lady Celestia. Lord Harrison requested I come out of retirement to serve you, if you will have me." "I'm not sure I deserve such an honor," Stephanie said, still tangled in the blanket and feeling very much like an imposter. "Deserve?" Isadora smiled. "My dear, you are celestial born and the High Lord's true mate. There is no question of deserving. You simply are." She gestured to the other 2 fae. "This is Brenna and Lisa. They will assist with your preparation for tonight's bonding ceremony." Brenna, a dark-haired fae with clever eyes, stepped forward with an armful of shimmering fabric. "We've been working on your gown since dawn, my lady. Lord Harrison described your coloring, and we've designed something that will honor both your celestial nature and your new position as High Lady." "I don't know if I can do this. Last night, I was a kitchen servant. Today, I'm expected to stand before the entire court and claim your rightful place," Lisa interrupted gently. She was younger than the other 2, with copper hair and freckles across her nose. "Forgive my boldness, my lady, but we all saw what you did yesterday. You faced Malachai the Shadow Drinker and drove him back with celestial fire. You think standing in a pretty dress and letting Lord Harrison claim you publicly will be harder than that?" Despite herself, Stephanie laughed. "When you put it that way." "Exactly. Now come, we have much to do and only hours to do it in." The preparation was unlike anything Stephanie had ever experienced. She was bathed in water infused with rose petals and moonflower, her silver gold hair washed until it shone like metal and silk combined. Isadora explained that celestial-born hair was naturally reflective of their magic, changing color with their emotional state and power level. The more Stephanie accepted her true nature, the more brilliant it would become. They dressed her in a gown that took her breath away, layers of fabric that shifted from deep amber to pale gold to pure white, like watching dawn break in slow motion. The bodice was embroidered with celestial runes in gold thread, the same markings that now decorated her skin, and the sleeves were sheer and flowing, giving the impression of wings when she moved. Around her neck, Isadora placed a torque of twisted gold and dawn-blessed amber. Lord Harrison commissioned this piece 3 weeks ago, Isadora explained, her fingers gentle as she adjusted the torque. Before your true nature was revealed, before the mate bond formed. He claimed it was for a future High Lady, but I think his magic knew even then who you would be. The thought made Stephanie's heart clench. Through the bond, she could feel Harrison's anticipation, his barely restrained excitement at the coming ceremony, and underneath it all, a possessive satisfaction that made her shiver. When she was finally ready, Isadora led her to a mirror, a full-length looking glass that showed her reflection without deception. Stephanie barely recognized herself. The woman staring back at her was radiant, powerful, every inch a high lady despite her servant's background. Her celestial markings glowed softly against her skin, and her silver gold hair flowed down her back like liquid starlight. Is that really me? That is who you have always been, my lady. You were simply hiding. Brenna adjusted a final fold of fabric. Are you ready? No, but I'll go anyway. The walk to the throne room felt both endless and too short. Stephanie could hear the gathered court through the massive doors, hundreds of voices murmuring with speculation and excitement. The bonding ceremony of a High Lord was rare enough, but one to a newly discovered celestial-born was unprecedented in living memory. The doors swung open and silence fell like a hammer. Every eye turned to her as she entered, and she felt the weight of their stares, some curious, some envious, some fearful. But none of it mattered, because at the far end of the throne room, standing before his throne in formal regalia, was Harrison. He wore black and gold, his coat embroidered with the symbols of the Emberdawn Court, and his dark hair was swept back from his face, revealing the sharp, immortal beauty of his features. But it was his eyes that caught her, amber and gold and absolutely burning with devotion as he watched her approach. Through the bond, she felt his awe, his pride, his absolute certainty that she was the most magnificent creature he had ever seen. The emotion was so pure and overwhelming that it gave her the courage to walk forward, to cross the throne room with her head high and her celestial light glowing softly around her. When she reached him, Harrison descended from his throne and took her hand, raising it to his lips in a gesture of reverence that made several nobles gasp. "You are breathtaking," he murmured, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "And you are mine." "As you are mine." He smiled, fierce and satisfied, and turned to face the assembled court. "Nobles and subjects of the Emberdawn Court, I present to you Stephanie, celestial-born and my true mate. Today, we will complete the bonding ceremony that began yesterday when our magic recognized itself. Any who would speak against this bond, speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence was absolute. No one dared challenge a mate bond, especially not one that had manifested so powerfully in front of witnesses. An ancient fae stepped forward, his robes marking him as the court's high seer. "Then let the ceremony begin. High Lord Harrison Ashford, do you take this woman as your bonded mate, to share your magic, your throne, and your very soul until the end of time itself?" "I do. From this moment until the last star fades, she is mine, and I am hers." The seer turned to Stephanie. "Stephanie, celestial born, do you take this fae as your bonded mate, to share your magic, your power, and your very soul until the end of time itself?" She looked into Harrison's amber eyes and felt the truth of the bond singing through every part of her being. "I do. From this moment until the last dawn breaks. He is mine, and I am his." "Then by the ancient laws and the will of magic itself, I bind you." The seer raised his staff, and power gathered in the throne room, not just his, but the collective magic of every fae present, witnessing and acknowledging the bond. "Let your marks appear. Let all see the truth of your union." Harrison rolled up his sleeve, and there, appearing even as they watched, was a mark that mirrored the celestial runes on Stephanie's skin. On her wrist, matching marks appeared, glowing with Harrison's dawn-blessed magic. They reached for each other simultaneously, and when their marked wrists touched, the bond completed fully. Power exploded through the throne room, not destructive this time, but transformative. Everyone present felt it, a wave of magic that spoke of new beginnings, of ancient prophecies fulfilled, of a future bright with possibility. The eternal dawn that lit the court blazed brighter, as if celebrating the union of High Lord and Celestial Born. When the light faded, Harrison pulled Stephanie against him and kissed her. Not a chaste ceremonial kiss, but a claiming, a promise, a declaration that she belonged to him as surely as he belonged to her. The court erupted in cheers, the sound echoing off the crystal walls like thunder. When they finally broke apart, breathless and bonded in every way that mattered, Harrison turned her to face the court and raised their joined hands high. "I present to you, High Lady Stephanie of the Emberdawn Court, my mate and your equal ruler. She bears my mark and my power. To honor her is to honor me. To threaten her is to face my wrath." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "And we have already seen what happens to those who underestimate her power." The nobles bowed deeply, acknowledging her new status. Stephanie felt the weight of their acceptance, their respect grudging her. Genuine, depending on the individual, but real nonetheless. She was no longer a servant hiding in the kitchens. She was High Lady, bonded to the most powerful fae in the Emberdawn Court, her celestial magic finally free and no longer feared. But even in that moment of triumph, she felt a shadow at the edge of her awareness, a reminder that Malachi had promised 2 more trials, that the prophecy was not yet complete, that dangers still lurked in the darkness beyond the court's borders. Harrison felt her concern through the bond and squeezed her hand. "Whatever comes, we face it together. You are not alone anymore, Stephanie. Never again." "Together," she echoed, and believed it. The celebration that followed was lavish and overwhelming. Nobles approached to offer congratulations, alliances, and carefully worded promises of loyalty. Stephanie navigated it all with Isadora's discreet guidance, learning quickly which smiles were genuine and which hid resentment or plotting. As the evening wore on, Harrison pulled her aside, leading her to a private balcony overlooking the Emberdawn Court's vast forests and crystal lakes. The eternal dawn painted everything in shades of amber and gold, beautiful and peaceful. "Are you happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. "I know this is not how you imagined your life would unfold." She leaned back against him, feeling his warmth and strength, feeling the bond between them pulse with contentment. "I never imagined my life would include happiness at all. I thought I would spend my years running and hiding until someone like Malachi found me and ended it." She turned in his arms to face him. "But you've given me more than safety. You've given me a place to belong, power without fear, and someone who sees me, truly sees me, and doesn't turn away." "I will never turn away. You are my dawn, Stephanie, the light that ends my long night." He kissed her again, slower this time, tender and full of promise. "Though I admit, I'm curious about what your celestial light looks like when you're truly at peace. Yesterday it was all wild power and protective fury. Today it's been controlled for the ceremony. But what does it look like when you're simply yourself?" "I don't know. I've spent so long suppressing it, I'm not sure I know what simply myself even means." "Then learn with me. Let your magic free here where only I can see. Show me your true form, not the one forced out by the Rite of Revealing, but the one you choose to show me." It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once, but through the bond, she felt his genuine curiosity, his desire to know every part of her, and his absolute lack of fear. Slowly, carefully, she let her glamour drop completely and allowed her celestial nature to manifest as it wanted, not as it was forced. Her wings unfurled, but this time they were softer, less aggressive, dawn colors bleeding into starlight, translucent and beautiful rather than blinding. Her skin glowed with gentle radiance, like moonlight on water, and her hair seemed to float slightly, as if caught in an invisible breeze. The celestial markings across her body pulsed with soft golden light, and she felt free. Harrison stared at her with such raw wonder that she felt herself blushing, her glow intensifying with the emotion. "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in 200 years of life." He reached out tentatively, and she nodded permission. His fingers traced the line of her wing, and where he touched, silver and gold light spiraled together. "Your magic responds to mine even in this form. We truly are meant for each other." "I'm starting to believe that." They stood together on the balcony as the celebration continued inside. Two beings bound by magic and fate, learning each other through touch and shared power, and the bond that connected their very souls. The future still held trials and dangers. Malachi would return, and the prophecy had yet to play out completely. But in that moment, Stephanie finally understood what it meant to be whole. She was celestial born, powerful and dangerous and magnificent. She was High Lady of the Emberdawn Court, claimed and cherished by a mate who would burn the world before letting anyone harm her. And most importantly, she was Stephanie, no longer hiding, no longer ashamed, no longer alone. The dawn would break in celestial fire just as the prophecy foretold. But it would not be a fire of destruction. It would be the light of a new age, one where the ancient bloodlines returned not as threats, but as guardians, where the bond between High Lord and Celestial Born would stand against the darkness and win. Together, they would face whatever trials came. Together, they would fulfill the prophecy and forge a future brighter than any dawn the Emberdawn Court had ever seen. And through it all, they would have each other, bonded, claimed, complete. The celestial light and the eternal dawn merged as Harrison pulled Stephanie close again, their magic singing in perfect harmony, and for the first time in her life, she knew she was exactly where she belonged. What do you think about the story? Let me know your comments. I would appreciate each of your thoughts. Also, comment which state you're watching from so I can give you a shout out on the next videos. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our next uploads. Thanks for watching!